hit the record button. On time, buddy.
My hero, buddy.
I'm learning, man. I'm learning. Hey, this is Teddy. We're 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Got my buddy Randy on here, and our special guest today is Lisa Downs. We got 15,000 people. Randy, I'm telling you, the internet is getting bigger and bigger. People are flocking to this show. And by the way, I appreciate the fact that you were able to schedule with me today appropriately on attire, as we discussed.
I dressed up just for this special occasion. So
I appreciate it, buddy. I really do. And I'm sure our guests do, and our special guests do as well. So we got people chatting to you already, man. Oh, I'm supposed to be monitoring that. And Bruce Rhodes is from Boston. Boston? How do you say that, Randy?
Well, it depends. Boston or Boston.
Yeah.
It's either Boston Bruins. Or
Look, there you go. Bruce says it's Boston.
Boston.
Chan's from GSO. Welcome, everybody. We're ahead of schedule today. If you want to drop in where you're located, we're always looking to see how far we reach. I mean, Randy and I have reached out as far as all the way across North Carolina, and I'm sure we can go farther than that.
We actually hit Italy.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Remember we had people from Italy watching.
Wow.
What time of day is it? What time of day is it right now in Italy? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But probably like about 6 hours ahead of Eastern time, something like that.
We got Staten Island and Clemens, North Carolina. Randy, where's Clemens, North Carolina?
That's would happen to be where my man cave is located. Kind sir.
Don't tell people that, man. You're not supposed. You're a superstar. You're not supposed to tell people where you live.
That's true. Yeah, you have to keep security keeps the hordes away. So
yeah, we pay more.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who else is on? Where are you? Who all's here? And where? Staten Island. That's good.
Yeah, Boone. Where's Boonetown? Is that Boone, North Carolina, Scott?
It is. Yeah, Scott's a cohort of mine with Goodwill, and there he is.
Is he saying that he's a cohort of yours, or it's in Boone, North by God, Carolina?
I think yes to both. I think yes to both.
You know, this is weird, Randy. We got 25,000 people on here, and only a few are telling us where they are. Are some of you, rest of you guys, locked away in a cave and you don't know where you are? Lands unknown. Steve, and I expect that. Cornelius. Good.
Yeah.
Good. We're a minute in. Should we go ahead and get started, Randy?
Let's do it. It's time again.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, I'm Teddy Burris. Thanks a lot for joining the lunch with Randy and Teddy. This is my buddy, Randy.
Right here.
There you go. And our special guest is Lisa Downs. And Randy will introduce Lisa to us in a few minutes. But thank you very much for coming. Hey, I really want to thank our sponsors. Brookmead Holdings, our sponsor. Randy and I really appreciate Brookmead stepping in. They're our founding sponsor. We're really grateful for them. Their business is all about job search coaching, professional development. If you're interested in moving your career to a next level, then go ahead and give Brookmead a phone call, 336-814-8910, or look them up on Facebook. I'll drop their Facebook page on the YouTube video today. But thank you, Brookmead Holdings, for being our sponsor and supporting us as we get this going. And really encourage anyone who's interested in moving their career forward to reach out to Brookmead Holdings. So cool beans. Randy, did I do that right?
You did. You're going to be monitoring our chat box.
I am.
Yeah. Teddy, who are you? Let's tell folks who you are.
So those who don't know me, I'm a LinkedIn strategist and coach. I'm out of Winston-Salem, North by Golly, Carolina, and I'm all about teaching sales professionals, business developers, anyone who has an intent and a desire to connect and to get into conversations. Burris Consulting helps people build their presence, build their network, and build their reputation using LinkedIn. Hey, Randy, a lady asked me today, Teddy, if you were talking to a 5-year-old, what would you tell them you do? So here's what I said, man. I'm all about helping people find new friends and get into new conversations across the globe. What do you think?
There you go.
Yeah. Tell them who you are, buddy.
Good deal. Randy Wooden, Teddy and I started their show back in April, and so it rolls on. I work for Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. It's based out of Winston-Salem here in the Triad, and I'm our director of our professional center. We think, well, it certainly was the first. We think it might still be the only Goodwill Professional Center in the country. So we help, as you might imagine, people who are tuning in today, professionals who are in a job transition or maybe employed and thinking about maybe kind of one of these days, that kind of thing. And anyway, so we do all that. It's free. Happy to help. We coach LinkedIn, resume, as you might expect. A lot of the same stuff that Teddy does. I mean, it's just we're all here trying to help in some various way. And I got to tell you, a lot of my clients are over the age of 40. Most of them are. And whether because of downsizing or career burnout or COVID or you name it, they're at a point, maybe a fork in the road, and they're not sure how to navigate that next step. And so we're very fortunate today. Lisa Downs joins us all the way from Washington State.
That's right.
With a consultancy called New Aspect Coaching. And your niche is, if I'm not mistaken, Lisa, is dealing with workers over age 40 and helping them navigate that next step. So Lisa, I just briefly introduced you. Why don't you give us a little bit longer story about you and also the why? What got you started with this?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Randy and Teddy. And so great to be here with you today. Happy to be on air with you on live and really appreciate it. And so my background is working in education, learning and development, leadership development, had done that work internally as an employee in different industries. So professional services, supporting accountants, CPAs with their learning and development, worked in the insurance industry and also in corporate for T-Mobile, Boeing, and my last corporate gig before I went independent was with EMC, who are based in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, pretty close to Boston. Now they're part of Dell Technologies. So a lot of varied industries, but all along the kind of the golden thread that ran through all of that was working on training, coaching, developing leaders, doing a lot of professional skill, facilitation, workshops, that sort of thing. And I went on my own in 2015. And it's kind of when I first went out on my own, I stuck to that leadership development area and team development, team communication work. But I was finding I was living my own definition of career insanity. So kind of that classic falling into the same roles over and over and over. The roles all pretty much had the same type of job description where it was, we want a leadership program built out. We want professional skills taught and developed. We want you to support a specific group of employees internally with their learning needs. And so it was becoming very rote, and it was becoming where it wasn't tripping the old trigger anymore. And was getting bored, and it felt like same old, and yet I kept falling into this pattern. And roles would look good on paper, and I'd get into them, and it'd be, well, this is pretty much the same old thing, and here we go again. And so I broke the cycle with leaving, but it's still, I was finding I was still doing the same type of work, just for different places, different people, and still wasn't fulfilling for me. The first year I went out on my own, I worked to get my coaching credential, and I knew all along that I wanted to have more of a full-time coaching practice. So I was working to build that out. And toward the end of 2018, I was coaching a friend of mine who's actually lives in the Raleigh-Durham area. And she has her own learning company that she's had for about 20 years. And, but I was coaching her, and it started off with, can you help me figure out my business goals for 2019? I said, sure. But it really morphed into this whole conversation around fear and trepidation over retirement. And she had just turned 65. And so big milestone, and, was getting bombarded with all the Medicare information, et cetera. But had this, this worry of, what do I do with the business? What do I do with myself? She kept using the word, I don't want to be idle. And when we really peeled it all back, what it boiled down to was a fear of being irrelevant. And so really helping her see, how that doesn't have to be the case, and who's telling you that story. That's what your life has to be, in kind of this third age, this third act of your life. And I thought, if Nancy needs this kind of help and support, I'm sure a lot of other people do too. And then I did a stint with Right Management. They're a big outplacement company. And I worked as a consultant for them for a while doing career consulting. And, I noticed that at least 2/3 or even more of the folks who were crossing my desk who were getting laid off were over the age of 40. And I just thought, this just isn't right. This isn't right. And for me, it's, my why is I just want to help people have great lives and to have fulfilling great careers and have next acts for them that are fulfilling as well, whether they work or not.
Mhm.
But that's what it's about for me is supporting people to figure out how can I have that great life and what's next for me. And that's what really does it for me. It's that the biggest gift someone can give me is to tell me how working with me help them. That's what it's about.
Good deal. All right. What we're going to do is encourage our attendees to
Again,
chat in some questions, and Teddy's going to keep an eye on that. I'm going to run down just so folks know kind of where we're headed here and where we're not going to go. Okay. What we're not going to do is talk about employment law as it relates to ageism or legal issues. Lisa's not an attorney. Teddy played one on TV, but his TV career is over with, and I don't want to go there either. So we're not going to get into that. But here's some topics that Lisa did want to discuss. So we want to try to work as much of this in as we can. One is the different phases you go through in a career transition. Another one is, what is your vision for the future? Another is, what is your brand, your identity? How do you define that? How do you project that to others? Another deals with ageism. Quite frankly, a huge topic for a lot of folks. What can we do to mitigate that? Also, resume development. Are there tips for resumes that can help to either, well, Lisa can address that, to help you if you're over 40? A couple more. Career paths. What does that mean? Full-time, part-time? Like you said, maybe not working at all. Maybe serving on a board. Who knows? But what are the different options out there? Also, COVID. Are there search tips for older workers kind of in lockdown now with this COVID going on? And lastly, letting go. And we'll let Lisa define that when we hopefully get time to do that. So let's dive in right now with this first topic, and that is the phases of career transition.
Yeah. So, as with anything, we go through change in different phases. And we also, much like a grieving process, when we move to something different, we are also simultaneously letting something go from our past when we make a big change and when we transition into something else. So sometimes we even have to go through kind of a mini version of a grieving process in terms of what I'm leaving behind so I can move forward and transition into something else. And but really phases of career transition, at least from the work that I do with folks, is to think about first in terms of vision. So, what is it's that kind of the classic Stephen Covey line, begin with the end in mind. So, what is that vision that you have for yourself and for your life? What does that look like exactly? What are you doing? Where is that happening? If you close your eyes, what do you see? So, what is that vision? Because that's really the prize, right? Eyes on the prize. And so, once you're clear on the vision, then that gives you the target to aim for. And then also the question of figuring out as well, who do you want to be? So often I'll hear people say, oh, I want to do this or do that. Or I just talked to someone on Monday who it was, I want to stop being, a contractor. I want to be a full-time employee again. It's like, okay, well, great. But that tells me nothing in terms of who you are. So who do you want to be? The resume is great because it gives you the information about what you've already done. It tells me nothing about who you are and who you want to be and what is that identity. And the identity piece is really big when it comes to making a big shift in terms of new role, new industry, different path, It's also huge when it comes to those who are looking to retire or semi-retire, because now it's not all about the job anymore. So who are you at your core?
Yeah.
So once we've got vision and we've got, identity figured out, then it's okay. So now how are you going to project that identity in terms of your brand as a professional, as a person? So what does that look like? And figuring out what is that brand statement, what defines you as a professional. And again, it's not necessarily a title, but what defines you. And
Yeah.
then once we've got that, then we can move on to more of, okay, then what's the action plan? How are you going to get there?
The vision part you mentioned, sometimes the crystal ball is a little foggy on my end, and I
Mhm.
don't always know what the future holds. Any advice you could give to help people formulate that vision who may just say, right now, I'm just kind of lost?
Yeah, and what I like to do is I like to ask out of a series of open-ended questions. And a lot of it is just thinking about, if you could have that ideal world, who are the people in your life? What would you be doing with your time? If money wasn't an issue, if you had that classic proverbial magic wand and wave it, what would it look like in terms of how you're spending your days? Where are you living? What does that look like? And so really just kind of asking these series of open-ended questions that are more about the bigger picture of your life, as opposed to, well, do you want to be a VP of such and such at this place? It's bigger than that. So it's more broad view in terms of what are you doing. So for example, my vision is to have a successful virtual career transition coaching practice, living a great life in Western Washington with my husband, and where we get to travel at least 2 or 3 times a year. That's my vision.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so whatever I do in my life, I want to make sure that it aligns with that vision.
Yeah.
And notice I didn't say, I'm a such and such at so and so's place. I'm a this or that. It's not about that. It's about what do I want going on in my life.
I'm reading the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And Lisa, one of the things that Grant Cardone says is don't say, I want this. Say, I want this so that it creates this for me. Example,
Yep.
I want my business to be totally virtual. I want it to hit a certain revenue level so that I can continue doing my volunteer work, start a nonprofit with my wife, and help other people who need help. So you can't just say, I want to be a CEO of company XYZ or whatever it is you want to be. You've got to say why you want it.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, for me, so this year, has been like, of course, unlike any other, probably in all of our lifetimes, at least my lifetime, I think. And, for me, I went through a big uh, upheaval with my health. So I had to go through breast cancer treatment this year. Shocking diagnosis back in mid-January before everything blew up with the pandemic. And in the middle of the pandemic, I had to go through 3 surgeries and radiation treatment, et cetera, et cetera. And so everything with my vision is so that I can lead a healthy life, right?
Yeah.
I can lead a healthy, long life.
Yep.
That's it. That's what it's about. And so everything else can fall in line with that vision.
Priorities, yeah, and life does throw us curveballs for sure. So again, we're talking with excuse me, with Lisa Downs of New Aspect Coaching, and we're addressing issues that are common to workers over age 40, and I think we have a number of those. So in the chat area, if you have questions, Teddy is monitoring that. Teddy, do you have a question for Lisa?
Let me ask that question, dude. We got 40,000 people in this call. I know it's a whole lot of keyboards out there chattering away. There's a lot of conversations happening in the chat. So thanks a lot, everybody, for doing that. I would love to know if there's anybody on the call who is under 40. So just if you're in there, drop that chat in there. You can drop it to the panelists if you don't want us to tell everybody else. But go ahead, Randy.
No, again, if we have questions that Teddy wants to pose, then we've got somebody. We have one at 38. The
We got a kid,
youngster.
Randy, we got a kid on here.
He's the youngster.
38.
Yeah, 38. Holy cow! I've got T-shirts that old, so it's
Yeah,
we
and I
talk
don't
vision.
know. I'm gonna have to do some checking on that other dude who said he's under 40. I don't know if I believe that. He may very well be, but
He might
That's
be.
right. You might
Yeah,
have to do some investigating on that one.
I know Steve. He says I'm under 40. Yeah.
Show your ID. Yeah. That's a good
I
one.
hear you. All right, so let's move to another topic. You talk about identity and
Mhm.
brand. So
Mhm.
help us understand what that means and how do we define that?
Yep. So, a good question I like to ask in terms of getting to this identity piece is, well, what really defines you? And sometimes people will say, well, I don't know, or I've been so entrenched in work all these years. And
Mhm.
heck, if I know, I go to work, we raise the kids, it's, have the significant other relationship, and the days tend to blend together and up and at 'em, and there we go. And so often what I propose to folks is, well, how about you ask other people? So ask other folks in your life, who am I to you? And a great way to phrase that, because sometimes if you say, well, who am I to you? They might come back with, well, you're my wife, you're my husband, you're my brother, my sister, my dad, mom, whatever it is. So I propose that folks ask it as, what do I provide to you? What do you get from me? And the answers that people receive from asking that question are often really intriguing, very interesting, and can help form the basis for who they are at their core. And also, of course, looking at what are your values? What are your core values? What really drives you? And then are those values currently being fed by what you're doing now? And if not, then what are some scenarios, possible visions, ways forward where you can be living those core values more consistently day to day? Because I know I've been in roles where my values have not been aligned and it doesn't feel good. And to do that day in and day out at work, at a job, is exhausting. And
Look,
so values tie into that piece too.
so let's say I'm a job hunter right now, and I think I know what my value is. In fact, we had Malcolm McDougall on last week with Clifton Strengths talking about what your strengths are and
Oh, yeah.
trying to look for opportunities to utilize your strengths in your, not only in your job hunt, but also on the job. So let's take it back to now I'm a job hunter. And I think here are certain things I would like to align with in a company. How do I try to determine that if I haven't worked there already and I'm just now a candidate at this point?
Yeah, so I love to put my detective hat on and investigate organizations. And so you can find out a lot about organizations, not only from their web presence or social media presence, but also who do you know? So what's the word on the street? So based on your LinkedIn connections, or who you know in your circle, who do you know who either works at that organization or know someone who does, who could broker an introduction for you, so you can really learn about, well, what are they saying are their core values as an organization? Are those easy for us to find and to see? And what is their culture? Because so much of it is culture fit. So not only fit for the roles that are available that they might have, but also what is that culture and is that a good fit for me? And is this a place or is this a role where I can utilize my strengths as much as possible to their fullest? And it does align well with who I am, with my work style, personality type, whatever that is. I use those types of assessments all the time. And that stuff's important too, because what's also exhausting is working against your type day in and day out. And it was part of what drove me out of corporate was I was doing so much program and project management work. And while I can do detail and I'm good at it and I'm on top of things, it exhausts me. And it's not my type. My type is working with people.
And I
Yeah.
exhaust Teddy too. I tell you, he has the patience of a saint because he puts up with me and all of my corny jokes all these weeks. So Teddy, thank you for being so patient and kind.
Wait, Randy, you were muted. I missed all that.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm breaking up over here. I can't hear you. What's over there, huh? Okay, so we hit this identity. Anything else you wanted to throw in there about identity and branding before we move on to ageism?
Just for, in terms of whether it's your resume, your LinkedIn profile, as you're engaging in job search, it's really important for you to have a very clear brand statement. And your brand statement is what's an overarching umbrella title that you can have on there that's like a headline for who you are as a professional. So something like strategic healthcare operations leader, right? Or innovative human resources professional, right? So, but it's something that's bigger than a specific job title like director of such and such. It's more an umbrella headline, and it's really important that you are clear on that, because that is basically the headline that brands you as a professional that you can also use then to expand into your pitch, your commercial, for who you are when you meet someone.
Yeah. So a couple questions come up. One I want to hang on to. Kevin's asked the question, but Kevin, hang tight. I'm going to ask it in a minute. But Greg threw out this idea as we're talking about, taking the kind of jobs that really align with us or don't align with us. And Greg shared this perspective that sometimes, with this survival that we need to have, we're going to take a job that may not be the right job for us. And Lisa, I'm going to share my perspective. I'd love to hear yours as well. Greg, it's absolutely fine to take a gap job. I mean, I call those gap jobs. It's not the right thing for you, but you've got this need, this urgency for revenue. So you've got to take a gap job. The challenge is for you to take a gap job that still allows you the time and energy to be able to look for your next great job. Lisa, anything else on that?
I will say, I will agree with that 100%. We have to do what we have to do, right? We got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And if that's what's available to us in the moment, then that's what's available to us in the moment. And that is perfectly okay. And at the same time, as you just said, Teddy, then don't let the work you need to do to figure out vision, identity, brand, path fall to the back burner over and over and over again. I just talked with someone, the person I talked with on Monday, she shared with me that, she's in a situation where she is keep falling into the same types of roles. And yet, she has a contract that's running out at the end of this year. She's going to need to pay her bills. She wants to get out of this pattern. And yet financially, she's not in a position to do that. So it's like, okay, great. So get what you can, make sure you've got the income you need, and then let's schedule some time so we can also start our work together at the same time or parallel. Or when's a time that you can carve out and make time for this work, because this work is going to be critical for you to break that cycle, break that pattern, and really get you to where you need to be. And if you keep putting it on the back burner, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I don't want to see that continuing to happen to more people over and over and over and over.
And I see that a lot too in the folks that I work with. A lot of times also too, people, I call them kids, but people coming out of college and can't land that ideal job right away. So they take a job as, let's say, a waiter, or they take a job in customer service somewhere, not really leveraging their education, but just to get a job. And you know what, if you start to work in restaurant or in retail, at some point, it just kind of grows on you and you just kind of stay there. And the next thing you wake up and 30 years have gone by.
Yep.
Here's a question for you though, to follow up on that. So let's say I do take that gap job or a couple of gap jobs. And let's face it, with COVID, who knows? I may take a job with good intentions and we'll see. I think it might be okay. And, we'll look at it 6 months from now. Well, guess what? 5 months from now, I'm out. Yep. So how do I begin to tell that story about my journey when I'm interviewing with what I hope to be the next real good job? And I've got this checkerboard of job hop stuff over the last couple, 3-4 years. How do I deal with that?
Well, the good news is I actually just saw an article about this a couple days ago. I think it came out the end of last week. And it was proposing just this type of question that was, will gaps in my resume or job hopping still be viewed as negatively as it's been before the pandemic? And the short answer is no. That the good news is that many employers know the situation. They know these are extenuating circumstances and very weird and different times from what we've experienced before in the job market, and are tending to be much more forgiving if they're seeing either a longer gap between jobs, a year or more, or the hopping.
Okay.
And you just need to be honest. I'm always a fan of honesty and transparency, and say, this is what's happened. This is what I learned from it. Here's how it's made me better going through this experience. And based on this, here's what I can bring to you.
Yeah.
Teddy, we're about halfway through the show.
Yeah. So I got Lisa Downs with us today. The conversation is all about job search at 40 and over. And, Randy and I are really fortunate that Brookmead Holdings is our sponsor. They are our founding sponsor. We appreciate them. They're all about job search, coaching, professional development. They're in the Triad area. So if you want to move your career to another level or move your career transition to a whole other level, encourage you to reach out to Brookmead Holdings and have a conversation. You can find them on Facebook. I'll drop the LinkedIn or their Facebook profile or URL in the YouTube channel, or just give them a call, 336-814-8910. Thanks a lot, Brookmead, for sponsors. We really do appreciate it. Randy, this is good conversation. This is good ideas, and you got a couple other ideas that you want to get Lisa to talk about. Go ahead and take it back.
Yeah, you bet. And Teddy will keep an eye on the chat box. So if you have questions, chat them in there. So let's talk the elephant in the room here, and that's age.
Yeah.
It's happening all around me, Randy. It's freaky. I don't know what's going on.
You won't see any gray hair up here. Of course, you don't see any hair.
It's all right. You have my husband's hairstyle.
Your husband must be a fantastic guy.
He is. Absolutely.
All right, here's the deal. Look, I'm old, right? I'm over 40. Okay, fine. I'm in a protected class.
You are not old.
I get it. I'm in a protected, what?
You are not old. Let's start there.
Well, look, I'm over 40. And we're not going to get into legal issues, the legal questions and ageism and discrimination and all that. But I guess a couple thoughts here, and you can weave this how you want to. One is what goes on between your ears and how you perceive yourself and how you project that to others. Another is how do you deal with that on a resume? And I guess we'll get to that later. And I forgot the third one. So why don't we just start with the first one? Go there.
But as you get started, Lisa, I'll bring in a question that Kevin shared that's going to be a really good question. But go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ageism is real, of course. So a lot of ageist attitudes out there, and a lot of it depends on the industry that you're in as well. And even within industries, there are differences. So for example, I think right now, IT has a reputation of can be pretty ageist. However, my husband's a Microsoftie, and he's 57. He just celebrated his 15th anniversary there, going strong, just got promoted. And a lot of his colleagues are age 50 and up. And so you can't say, make a blanket generalization that it's everywhere, and yet it does exist. And really what I recommend to combat it is that you always want to focus on the value that you bring and how you can help an organization move forward, as well as how you can also stay open to learning. If you go in with the mindset of either, well, I'm too old for this, I'm not going to get this because of my age, that's beyond me, and you say those things to yourself, all you're doing is perpetuating ageist stereotypes in your own mind. And that's what you project. So instead, think about how can you stay learning, always learning. That's the key. How can you then contribute to the organization in a way where you can help them grow from a productivity standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, from a talent standpoint? How can you help develop the next generation of up and coming leaders? What can you do to help them get to where they want to be based on the organization's goals? And that's really what you need to emphasize. But you know what? The great thing is that as more time goes by, and more years pass, even our view of what retirement is morphing to be something very different from what was for our parents' generation and the generation before them. And it's really not about I stop living, I stop all work. It's more about, well, what can I do that's different type of work? And with the lifespans that we have now, I mean, right now on average, the difference between traditional retirement age and our actual lifespan, average lifespan, is 22 years, as opposed to even just back in the 1930s, that gap was more like 7 years. So we're going to live a long time generally. We got a lot of life left with us, a lot of years to go. And so we also need to get out of this notion of that when I hit a certain age, I'm done.
Yeah. Lisa, I'm with you 100%. I'm 62, and today, you didn't know that, buddy? Remember, man, Mary Kay. Okay.
That's
anyway,
your little secret, right? Yeah.
At 62, I am having more fun doing what I'm doing today across almost the entire day, from as early as 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night every day. And this thing called retirement is not real for me. No, it's
No.
as you explained, what people thought of the retirement. I have 2 rockers on my front porch. I'm not going to sit in those things. I'm going to just change what I'm doing because I'm having so much fun doing it. I'm going to do this until the good Lord says stop. But whatever that message is, I get. I just think that, as you just said, retirement's going to keep changing the way it looks and the way we live it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and two, just to kind of throw another thought on there, if we love, what's that? If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. But kind of to run with that, yeah. If your job sucks and you hate it, and you're not using your strengths, your passions, and you're just collecting a paycheck, then okay, I retire in 3 years, 22 days, 6 hours, and 10 minutes. And I know people like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they're miserable for the most part. So somebody like both of you guys, and me included, love what we do. The fact that we can make a buck at it, we got it going. All right. Lisa, let me ask you this. Here's put you on the spot just a little bit, and I'll help lead the witness here. And if I put you on the spot, I'm not going to ask you.
Where was I on the night of June 16th?
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute.
And we have video.
Here are some of the stereotypes of older workers. You hit on one, and that is, this guy's a dinosaur. They're not up to date with technology. So I think the lifelong learner part, you nailed that. How do they address, let's say in the interview, the part about, okay, this guy's old, he's set in his ways, and you can't teach him nothing. So how do we deal with that?
Examples. And so having your examples and stories to share of when you have helped an organization achieve its goals, when you've contributed and collaborated as part of a team, when you've worked with people who are younger than you successfully, when you've had a boss that's younger than you and that was a good relationship, when you have had to learn something new and what did that look like? What did that entail? And the success of that and how it helped you as a professional and help the organization. Examples.
One more.
Yeah.
One more for you is the old, you're overqualified and you want too much money. And so therefore you look at this, you as the candidate, we think you're looking at this as a gap job because, let's face it, you could make more money somewhere else. So sell me on why I should believe you when you clearly on paper are overqualified. And frankly, you could do my job. So I'm scared of you taking my job, but I don't think I can afford you enough to keep you here. How do you address that if you want that job?
Because I'm at a different time in my life, Randy, when I'm looking for a different kind of challenge. Let's face it, been there, done that to some extent. And yes, this has been, my career up to this point. And yet I'm looking to go in a different direction with a different challenge. Yeah. And I'm looking for an organization that will afford me the opportunity to contribute to that as best I can and contribute to their goals and for them to be successful. and as well as an opportunity for me to help develop their people.
Yeah.
And I really like that last part, because with the 5 generations in the workplace, somebody of our generation can help mentor millennials and so forth. We're moving on. We've got Lisa Downs here. Teddy, is there a question that?
Yep. Kevin, I got 2 questions. Kevin asked a while ago, compare these 2 challenges. Challenge number 1, a person over the age of 40 that stayed in the same career path all along, but now has to search in a different industry, compared to someone who is over the age of 40 with no established career path, who also is on the same journey of finding that new place to work. Can you see that concept?
Yep, absolutely. And I think, to me, in both instances, my response would be leverage your network. Leverage your network. So who is already in the industry that you're aiming for? If you need to change industries after doing something for a long time, also do a really detailed assessment of your skill set and what are the skills that you use that got you to where you are now that you can also apply in a different industry in a different capacity. And what do you see as some examples of how you can transfer those skills? But talk to people who are in that industry. Who do they know to broker introductions and referrals? What can they tell you about what it's really like to work in that industry? And what would their advice and recommendations be as well? And then for someone who doesn't really know and is doing that search, it's like, okay, well, first let's do that work around vision, identity, get that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can figure out, well, what are the industries that may make sense for you to move to? And then let's talk about, who do you know or who can you be introduced to again to help get you some information and some research so you know exactly where to target your search.
Yeah. And Lisa, I'm with you factorially on it's your network is where you're going to find those great opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And for, in the context of you haven't really had an established industry, which means in some people's vision, you've been job hopping. You've got to look at that industry you want to be in and that role that you want to do. And you've got to come up with stories around the skills that that role takes that you have developed while you've been doing different things. And when you could tell those stories related to the requirements of the role, then the not having a steady journey becomes less of an issue because you've grown along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's
Examples.
Yeah.
All right.
You got one more. You got something?
Well, I was going to say we've got 20 minutes left and we've got a couple, 3 other topics we want to hit. So Teddy, take a question and then we'll move on.
Well, Michelle asked, and 62 years old, unemployed, she's concerned about applying for jobs. Yes, they can't ask, but they'll ask for education and graduation dates, etc. Is there an easy answer to counter that challenge?
So once you are on paper, so from a resume standpoint, the rule of thumb is only go back no more than 15 years of job experience. 10 to 15 years is great. Get the years off of any college degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, what have you, or certifications that are a bit long in the tooth. So just take the years off of those. So on paper, you can get through the applicant tracking systems and the initial screenings. Once you've got the captive audience in the interview process, that's where you sell yourself. So that's where, again, examples, what's your value? How can you help the organization be successful? How can you help them move forward? How can you bring up next generation? How can you develop new processes, systems? How can you help them reach the revenue they want to hit, et cetera? Because once you're in the interview, that's where you put your sales hat on and you've got the captive audience. But on paper, do what you can to limit the dates as much as possible. I know it's not easy when you have to apply online and a lot of the fields that they require box you in. What I recommend is give an honest answer. And also if there's a way to comment, you can use, a comments box that's open-ended. A lot of times it happens with salary questions, right? So sometimes, people will, if they're able to leave the salary question blank, they will. If they're forced to put a number, put a ballpark number and then put in the comments that you're willing to be flexible and negotiable.
Yeah.
But if you, yeah, as Steve said in the chat there, if you can avoid applying online and can go right to the person, a recruiter or hiring manager, that's always the preferred way.
And I say, start the conversation with the people that you want to have a conversation with before you apply.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Randy, take it back, buddy.
Yeah, in fact, we just jumped into that next topic, which is resume development. So if you had about a 60 to 90-second blurb on what are some tips beyond the ones you've already mentioned about dates, any other ideas and tips about resume development to help that older worker?
The biggest one is results. So results and outcomes. So no longer is the bullet laundry list of actions going to get you anywhere. It's all about results. So you may have done 20 different tasks. I don't want to see 20 different tasks. I want to see 5 to 6 solid bullet points that tell me the results you got. So what happened or what was the outcome as a result of you doing that work and taking action? I mentioned about clear brand statement. You want a nice tight skills summary at the top. You want to, again, go back only 10 to 15 years. But so much is about the results and the outcomes. And you want to make sure you've got it in a modern looking template. So don't use, old timey script. Use fonts like Arial. That's a great one. Other fonts can look a little dated, like Times New Roman can look a little dated. So just make sure you've got nice, I use Calibri, that's my standard font I use for documents, looks great, looks modern. Don't have a lot of zany colors, weird things going on, keep it straightforward. And those types of resumes will also get bumped by the applicant tracking systems. And you also want to have standard headings for your sections, like work experience, education, et cetera, summary, et cetera, because again, those things will get picked up by the applicant tracking systems. And if you use weird section headers, something that's odd, it's going to dump you out. Same as if you have your contact information in the header. Don't put your contact information in a header. Put it in the main document because again, a lot of ATSs will kick you out if they can't read the header.
Interesting. So good info. And again, for those that had to step away for a moment or may have lost audio or video or whatever, we always archive these and they're viewable on YouTube and all across the universe for free. So that
and by the way, on 12/23, our special guest will be an applicant tracking system professional.
Yay.
Yeah, and that stuff is ever evolving, technology and how that deals with how we learn about jobs and apply and interview and so forth. So we got a couple minutes left. We're going to ask Lisa to provide a summary here in just a moment of some key takeaways she'd like you to have. And Teddy and I will share a comment or two. I'll have to think of something, Teddy. I
got it, buddy.
I got it. Whatever it is, it'll come to me. But all right, so a couple thoughts here. Career paths, just hit these kind of quick. What are some options for somebody that's kind of at that fork in the road, an older worker? You mentioned a handful of those in your talking points.
Yep. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional job, 9-to-5 job working for someone else. So think about, can you work part-time? Can you be a contractor, work on a contract basis or, in a temp role? Do you want to be a business owner, be an entrepreneur? Would you like to be a franchisee? So own a franchise. It's a great happy medium between being fully independent on your own and having your own business as a structure. Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to go work a nonprofit, do charitable work? Do you want to have a portfolio career? And by that, what I mean is a little bit of everything. Do you want to serve on boards at the same time you're volunteering for organizations? At the same time, maybe you're doing a part-time paid role. So it's really, crafting, again, just based on your vision. What is it that you want to be spending your time doing? And then let's talk about, how you're going to get there. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that you go back into, a traditional 9-to-5 job either. There's a lot of different paths you can go down.
Sounds like it. All right, COVID search tips, COVID-19. Any tips that might be somewhat unique to older workers?
In the virtual environment, it's good to practice interviewing into your webcam So eye contact with your webcam, making sure you've got good background that's neutral or, not distracting. And of course, online networking, work your LinkedIn, work your contacts, schedule time with people, schedule catch up, ask for introductions, ask for just informational meetings, because what's going to help you the most is staying connected and not withdrawing, just because we have to interact these days virtually and not face to face.
And for those that might want to have some follow-up discussion or a quick question with Lisa, get your pen handy. And Teddy, if you've got the opportunity, if you haven't done it already, maybe in the chat box, you can chat in ways, a way to follow up with Lisa. Now she's in a different time zone. She's out in.
I am. I'm way out in the Seattle area, so I'm on Pacific time. I'm 3 hours behind, so that's why I'm still sucking down my coffee.
All right, we've got about 12 minutes left, so let's do this. You have one other topic you want to hit, and then we'll ask for the summary, and that is, and this is just to show my age here. This is an old Paul McCartney and Wings song from Wings Over America. So it's called Letting Go. And that's the topic. So what does letting go mean? Mm-hmm. I don't want to ask you to sing it, but what does letting go mean?
Oh yeah, and I guess that's different from Let It Go from Frozen? Was that the Frozen song too?
It
Yeah,
might be, yeah.
I won't sing.
Now look who's dating. Look who's talking about.
I gave up.
I'll go with Sir Paul.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was the last movie I think I watched. So.
Well, that's a classic.
It's been a while. So
it's a classic. That's right. Save Ferris. That's a classic. So letting go. So as I mentioned at the start, often what I do with clients is help them get through a bit of a grieving process, because when we make a change and we go towards something, we are by its nature giving up something else. So that could be a prior role. It could be a place where we lived. It could be how we thought of ourselves in terms of our identity and who we have been in our lives up to this point. And I think of it as, it's not so much, whenever we have a change, it can be scary because we're going into the unknown. And yet it's really about having trust in yourself too. Having trust that you will be successful, having trust that things will work out for you in the universe, whatever you ascribe to in terms of that. But having trust that things will work out and they will be okay in the end, because that's what's going to help you move forward. And so what do you need to let go of in your life in terms of what you're still clinging to mentally, emotionally, even physically, in terms of who you have been to date? And now wrapping your head and arms around perhaps a different identity for who you will be going forward, because it will look different, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean you change who you are as a person at your core. It just means that what you put out in the world is going to look a little different. And then we talk about what that might be.
Interesting. Well, Lisa, if you would, let's give folks a kind of a wrap, a summary, some takeaways you would like to have people keep in mind and also try to perhaps implement as they move through this next step in their lives.
Yeah, I would say, the first thing that's key is to get very clear on who you are and what you want for your life. The second thing is to understand that you get to create whatever your next phase is. You get to create it. You are the driver of your life and your career, not an employer, not LinkedIn, not anyone else. It's you, and you get to create that. And the third thing is that you all have talent, skills, strengths, gifts, and uniqueness that people need in the world. And so it's a matter of figuring out how can you take that and apply it in a different context and a different setting.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Lisa. Teddy, is there another question?
No, I think I got all the questions. Got a lot of conversations going on. And as Scott Hankson said, stellar. So thank you, Scott.
I went to high school with a girl named Stellar. This was back in Rhode Island.
Randy, stay focused. Stay focused.
Well, hey, Teddy, I'll give you my 2 cents. So we'll turn it to you and you can take us home and
I'll wrap it up.
Next week guest. I talk a lot about life as a journey, and there are a lot of chapters in that. And I saw this on Facebook, so I know it's true. Right?
There you go.
You think about it when
Well,
you're
that's gospel, right?
when you're a kid, you think, man, if I'm only old enough to where I can drive, or I can't wait till I get out of high school, or I can't wait to leave my parents and be on my own, or I can't wait to start a family, or I can't wait to do this, or I can't wait for that. I wish I were older. And now that we're older, now we wish we were younger, only we knew back then what we know today. And we find ourselves either living in the future too far, or perhaps in the past, and we don't appreciate the present. Mm-hmm. And as I get older, and I've been down the cancer route myself, and have had a few other life experiences that help shape your values and who you are. And I think if we don't pay attention to and learn from things that have happened to help us refine what our vision is, so that we can have learned from the past, but to live in the present, to say, I can't change, I have to let go of that. Mm-hmm. And I can't live so much in the future saying, well, one day next thing you know, you're dead.
Yep. So
control what you can, which is your time, your attitude, do the best you can. There's no guarantee that it's going to be perfect the first time. I mean, even baseball players, if you get one hit out of 3,
nothing is.
You're going to be fine. So don't sweat it if things don't work out on your time frame. You're working a journey, you're working a path, learn from it. And you made an excellent point. The whole thing about hope, keep that faith, keep moving forward, seeing that progress. And I think that can help you remain positive, because so much of what hinders us is between our ears. Mm-hmm. And we can't, we won't, we're not good enough. So once we get beyond that, I think that'll help us. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Teddy, take us home.
Cool. Good stuff. Lisa, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Great ideas, great conversation. I shared your contact information in the chat. I'll put it out there in the YouTube video as well. Here's what I heard. Here's what you made me think about. I think I use the word stories. I think you use the word examples. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have these examples. You've got to have these stories that truly paints a picture that the person who reads it or hears it can see you doing what you're talking about doing. That's hard to do, but if you practice it, you can get good at painting those stories. The other one is, I use this phrase, and I mentioned it to Lisa when she was in what's it called, Randy, green room.
Yeah, the green room.
She's in the green room. I stopped in the green room, and she's, getting her makeup done and getting her script ready. And I'm playing with you, Lisa. But I said, one of the things I want you all to do is stop looking for a job. Just stop looking for a job so hard through job boards, and instead find a way to get into meaningful conversations. That's where you're going to find the best opportunities for yourself. And another one is, you don't need a job. You're going to hate me. I'm speaking the same thing a different way. You do not need a full-time job. You need revenue. So get your mind focused around a way to create revenue, and it may not be a full-time job. It might be an entrepreneurship. It might be, a part-time contract job that pays a higher level, that gives you enough money to pay the insurance you need to pay for. There's lots of options beyond simply taking a job. Here's the other one. Talk with people who are doing stuff that's strange. Find people who are doing stuff that's weird, but they love it and they're making a decent living at it. I have one daughter who's a professional photographer. When COVID smacked her, she started making custom, unique signs. She is rocking the sign business today. I have another daughter who was a stay-at-home mom who needed money to put her kids in preschool. She started taking used furniture and repurposing it into something else. If you like using nails and hammers and saws, people like that kind of stuff. I have another friend of mine who quit his corporate job and became an adjunct instructor working at 5 community colleges. And he loves what he does. These are people who are strange because they're doing things a little differently and they're loving it. And my last point is, read books. There are 2 books that I want you to read. Lisa, Designing Your Life.
Yep, that's a great one.
Great book. Bill Burnett, I think.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah. And the other one is 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. He's way out there, but that's the concept behind 10X. So those are my two books that I recommend. And so that's my closing points. Next week, oh my God, we got another absolutely fantastic special guest. Joyce Richmond will join us next week, and her conversation is going to be about the important tactics of an effective career transition. You don't want to miss that. Another great speaker. Again, Lisa, really appreciate you showing up, coming all the way across the country to be here. What's the rest of the week look like for you?
Well, for me, so I have my radio show is this afternoon. So it airs 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern, called Reigniting You, where we talk career transition for age 40 plus. KKNW radio.com. So that's today. We're going to do a segment where listeners send me their career transition questions. So I'll be fielding listener questions today. Other than that, just some networking meetings here as we get closer to the holidays. Groups are having their virtual holiday parties and networking with colleagues. And a couple of us are plotting a January workshop that we're going to put together for women professionals who are, we're having it focus on women over age 40 about designing their life, their work life.
Real good.
So
Yeah.
we're in talks for that right now.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you all. We had a really good number. We had 40,000 people show up today, Lisa. So thank you. Remember, if you know someone else that this conversation or these conversations could be helpful for, please invite them. Also, if you know of a topic or a speaker that you think would be phenomenal for the lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy, please look for Randy, look for Teddy, and introduce us to other great speakers. And with that, it's a wrap.
Thanks, everyone.
Great week. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.